everybody, this is Mike with On Point Preparedness. This is the long-awaited blackout video that I have been promising you all. There is a significant amount of news articles and headlines, as well as peculiar events and symbolism, all pointing to the fact that we may be experiencing some type of blackout in the near future. Now, before I get into the research that I've compiled for all of you, I just want to give the audience a quick note. Topics such as these shared on YouTube and the broad internet community typically are oriented towards the fear, doom, and gloom because that's what sells. This video is really not intended to make anyone fear or panic. From my perspective, I'm seeing enough signs that this might indeed be a literal threat towards potentially the later half of 2020. And so my advice as we digest this information is that you see it, you acknowledge it, and you take some practical preparations if it so happens to come to fruition. That includes not just, physical preps to ride out this type of event, but also make sure that you have other means to maintain fellowship with your Christian brothers and sisters. So with that, let's go ahead and look at the research. Now, about 1 to 2 years ago, I did have a couple videos talking about the potential of a blackout. I'm going to share some of those clips towards the latter half of this video. But what really piqued my interest and made me do this video now is that we have a very interesting executive order from Trump that was on May 1st of 2020. You can see it right here where he signed this United States Bulk Power System Protection Order to protect the power grid specifically from an attack. Within the article itself, it says that a successful attack on our bulk power system would present significant risk to our economy, human health, and safety, and would render the United States less capable of acting in defense. The most peculiar thing about this is it just sort of came out of nowhere. And so I just made a mental note of it and proceeded on with the rest of the 2020 year. But then we started seeing a lot of other peculiar things regarding this term of blackout. For example, sometime in June, it was announced that Tuesday is Blackout Day. And you see every single Tuesday, this article is July 7, 2020, every single Tuesday, they're using Blackout 2020. Now, the interesting thing is if you look on Google, there will be a lot of articles about how Blackout 2020 was started, and it's all very superficial. But there is an underlying sort of weird story that many of the most prominent black activists had no idea where this blackout hashtag started from. I'm going to show you one such example of this from Brittany Packnett. She is an American activist that is very prominent in the African American community. Here you can see this Facebook post where she said, "I have asked multiple organizers around the country who've been doing this for a long time," talking about black activism, "and no one, in caps, knows anything about Blackout Tuesday. None of us organized this. If I am wrong, I will pull this post down and correct it." And today is July 7, 2020, so no, she still hasn't pulled it down. She legitimately cannot find out where this Blackout Tuesday hashtag came from. Makes you wonder. Because this isn't just a little mini viral thing. Again, this was started in June and it's still proceeding every single Tuesday, now up through July. When this first started in June, perhaps you all have seen it, the blackout hashtag went viral, and especially across Instagram and many other picture-oriented social media sites, everyone just started posting black empty boxes for blackout. And then no one knows where this started from. You even find many black activists say that it's actually a competing hashtag against Black Lives Matter. So you'll find a lot of black activists that don't even like this whole Blackout Tuesday thing. Now, while the Blackout Tuesday hashtag is a large part of the symbolism, there's a lot more than just that. Check out this TED Talk, which was published on April 10, 2020, and just a month before Trump's executive order on protecting the power grid. And notice in the description, they say this was a TED Talk given in September 2017. As I looked in the comments on this video, there was one commenter who said that he is a regular watcher of pretty much all TED Talks. And he said that he has never seen a TED Talk recorded 2 years earlier and then published later. So again, just very strange things, not just with the Blackout Tuesday where some of the prominent activists didn't even know who started this, and now this TED Talk just sort of being published 2 years after recording, but then there's even more than this. If you remember, everyone follows the occult symbology of the Economist covers. Well, in 2019, they said the world in 2019, again, it's not 2020, but still predictive programming before the events happen, a blacked out cover. And oddly enough, they changed that blackout cover to something different later on. And lots of people did analysis of that. But again, the blackout cover a year before any of this stuff happens is also quite interesting. I've also noticed from the left and the right, there's very popular public figures that are using this term blackout. Here you have Candace Owens. She's a right-wing person who supports Trump, and she has a book called Blackout, being published on 9/14/20. Here's another strange article from June when the riots were going on. Viral photo of White House, quote, going dark, that was shared by Democrats is from before the Trump presidency. So when these riots were going on, the articles from, I think, New York Times and others said that the White House shut all its lights off. The truth is that the White House always shuts off their lights at 11 p.m., but the photo that they used was 5 years before the Trump presidency and was also doctored to remove even more light so that it would be completely darked or blacked out, rather. So again, just very strange things where hashtags are being used where no one knows where they came from. These blackout photos of the White House were doctored and aren't necessarily true. And as I've shown you in some of the other things, TED Talks are being, resurrected 2 years after the fact. You've got all this blackout hashtag stuff going on. But like even here's another one. Maybe this is simply because I've just been researching the term blackout, but perhaps on your YouTube feed, you've seen this as well. The Blackout movie in 2020, a sci-fi movie. I haven't actually watched a trailer yet, but I'm sure if you watch it, there's some interesting symbolism in there as well. One last thing before I start to get into the audio clips. I think back in 2017, the whole cult of QAnon was talking about 10 days of darkness. Now, this never really manifested to be truth back in 2017 or 2018, but I find it interesting that those in again, it's a cult, the QAnon cult, they are still putting out messages that the blackout will happen in the later half of 2020. The other interesting aspect of this is that they specifically chose 10 days of darkness. And while I was searching for that term, there was a lot of studies that were performed on humans talking about the psychological effects, the negative psychological effects of 10 days in darkness. It's all just a little strange. Now, lastly, before I start to share some of my old video clips talking about a lot of Transformers, major Transformers were blowing up over the past 2 years, I want to share this clip from the A Minute to Midnight channel. This was shared, I believe, on July 5th or 6th of 2020. Tony has a friend who goes by the name of Jeremy, who is an ex-32-degree Freemason and is still in contact with some other Freemasons that are his friends. And they warned him that a blackout was coming in 2020. Now, Tony is a good researcher and that he remains very unbiased. He acknowledges the fact that these Masons do know that this person, Jeremy, has been revealing things that are said to him. So it's perfectly understandable that they might be feeding him false information, disinformation. But the reason I share this is just because before this interview even aired, I was starting to see all these signs and symbols as well as the executive orders, and it all just seemed very strange. So just have a listen to this short little clip.
And the power will go out by the end of this year. He gave me that date. For a fact, he said it will happen. But he said it won't be cut off. The riots coming will tear grids down and destroy it, along with cities and large towns.
So you can see this is all fairly strange. It's a little bit too much for comfort to think that this is all happenstance. And perhaps this ties into some of the things that I covered, again, last year, and I believe it ran into the year after last. There was a lot of high-profile transformers, major transformers that were blowing up all over the world within a particular frame of time, a couple months. And no one exactly knows why they were happening. Some thought it was just old equipment, cyber attacks, terrorist attacks, whatnot. But again, this threat of blackout is not just something necessarily new to 2020. Just have a look through these couple clips, and I'll give some commentary towards.
A bright blue light suddenly illuminates the skies over New York City. The blue light was enhanced by low cloud cover, making it visible for miles. ESPN anchorman Keith Olbermann watched in awe from his balcony.
Unless those are the northern lights. I don't think those are the northern lights.
Many people posting videos to social media trying to figure out what caused the light.
What is that?
Turns out there was a massive explosion at a Con Edison power station in Astoria, Queens.
The next one here just happened today or yesterday in Crossville, Tennessee. It's actually quite interesting. The lady that is recording this says the end is nigh, and you can see why.
Oh, it's happening. The end is near. What the fuck is that?
Another one here, it's pretty spectacular video footage. This is in Sao Paulo, Brazil, around January 5th, 2019. This video is probably one of the craziest. It's from Venezuela, sometime late August into early September.
Oh my God, Maracaibo sin luz, señores. Oh, allá está, pues listo, Maracaibo sin luz, vamos. Marico. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow. Oh my God. Para el limón mismo. Oh my God, marico. Wow.
Coming back around to January 2019, this is in Mexico City, I believe on January 13th, 2019.
That's crazy!
So again, no one really knows why all these different transformers blew up. That last clip, they said that it was potentially from windstorms. You could see that there was a little bit of wind, but the gusts weren't anywhere near as powerful as some of the hurricanes that we've seen. So regardless, it was just all very strange that we saw so many transformers blowing up. And again, we're leading into these executive orders on protecting the power grid, and just lots of blackout symbolism and articles and videos. So as I talked about in the beginning, just make sure that you have practical preparations, and that you mentally process that this might be a possibility, so you don't get stricken with fear if it were to happen. And additionally, as I talked about, establishing your fellowship, not just online. Many of us have fellowship online, and we find more fellowship online than sometimes in our own churches. You should really be thinking about additional ways of having rally points, or having different ways of communicating with people in your fellowship, maybe by phone or other means, in case this were to happen. Now, I do want to leave you with just something strange. This is more conspiratorial than some of the other things that I've shared with you. But as I saw all this blackout stuff happening, I couldn't help but think of a movie I watched a long, long time ago, and that was Escape from LA with Snake Plissken. Actually, in this film, he escapes from this penal colony of LA, which split from the mainland United States. And when he escapes from there, he wants to get revenge on the government. And he uses a series of satellites to cause a global EMP and make the whole world go black. And it's sort of funny how blatant they make this, but the code that he enters to do that is 666. Again, I don't really think there's anything to that except for them just wanting to make a mockery of the 666 and mark of the beast type things there. But again, we see a series of satellites get activated, and causes a global blackout. I don't think that there's going to be a global blackout, but I do think that parts of this world in the United States are going to see intermittent disruptions in maybe electricity or communications or whatnot. But as I was thinking about this Escape from LA movie, and I was doing a little bit of research, I stumbled onto this blog entitled The Slog, Cognitive Dissident. But the title says Explosive, Elon Musk and the Weaponizing of Outer Space. I'm not going to read through these verbatim, but you can pause the video if you want to read through them yourself. But he gives a whole bunch of just very common sense questions about how in the world this Starlink would even provide global internet access. I mean, for one, he says that there's only enough so that even if you were to get reception from these satellites, they would disappear from your view within a couple of minutes. So unless you flood the entire atmosphere with these satellites, there's no way you could have 24-hour internet. Additionally, that you would need some type of array on Earth that you could track these satellites so you could get a consistent internet signal. So he makes a lot of just very common sense questions about, is this really what they say it is? And then towards the later half of the article, he says, Elon Musk is building, if not a weapon, then at the very least a global coordination tool for American hegemony, quasi-military neocon foreign policy. So, if you read through the article, there is a lot of suspicious things about Elon Musk and his Starlink and SpaceX and all that. And I just couldn't help but think of Snake Plissken and Escape from LA, Escape from New York, if you ever have seen those movies way, way in the past. I forget even when they aired. They're pretty old. Anywho, again, I've shared enough, and there's probably even more so than this, that there is a peculiarity, if that's the right word, about this whole blackout symbolism. And it seems like they're feeding us this, that, it's going to happen. So we don't submit to a spirit of fear, and we're not slaves to fear. But I think if we're caught completely off guard, if something were to happen to this, then we would be subject to fear. And so, again, we see this as a potential, we acknowledge it, and we rely on the sovereignty of God, but also do what we can do that's within our control in terms of, making plans with those in our fellowship, as well as taking practical and prudent preparations. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. God bless.